Hello. So I thought I'd try making a little video. I had a few thoughts I wanted to share, um, mainly about this topic of team value versus information. Is it better to do your transfers early and chase price rises, or is it better to wait for information? And it seems to me like the majority wisdom is that it's better to wait. But I've always kind of preferred. I've always leaned more towards moving early. Um, but I'm very aware that the majority of people who seem to think it's better to wait are all people who have way higher ranks than me, have far more experience than me, and so there's a very good chance I could be wrong. And I'm curious to know what the truth is. But I had a little look into it. I did this little study on it, and which I'll go over in a minute. And it's making me think even more now that it is better to go early. So I want to just put that side of the argument forward, and then you can do what you want. But I do think another thing, I do like this idea of play it your own way. That's what James from Planet FPL always says, and I definitely think that's true. And I one of the things I love about FPL is that it's I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's linked with our psychology and stuff, and I sometimes wonder whether this is just a theory. I have no idea if it's true, subconscious Freudian, but I wonder whether the reason why I always tend to lean a bit more, I play FPL a little bit more riskily, is because my own life is boring. Like my own life, maybe I don't take enough risks in my own life, and therefore, whenever I get to FPL, I feel very happy to go with risks. The idea of playing boring in FPL is I don't want to do that. I don't know, just a theory. And I wonder whether other people who like to play very safe and sedentary with FPL, maybe they've got loads going on. Maybe they've got stress at work and kids crying and all kinds of problems going on in their life, and they just want a nice, calm, peaceful game. That, who knows if that's true, but I just wonder sometimes. But I do think sometimes the way we play is linked with our own lives, and I think so sometimes. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But anyway, that's a subconscious level. On a conscious level, I feel as though what I'm trying to do is just play the true way, and I'm trying to get as many points as possible. And for me, I feel like it's okay to chase price rises. And so there's two aspects to this. So the first is that I do think team value matters, because some people say, well, it doesn't matter. Whereas for me, FPL is it's a game of inches. It's, pardon me, every advantage. I'm very much a kind of every little helps kind of person, and especially with FPL, it's a very tight game. Every margin that you can gain matters, and every little margin you gain adds up to a lot in the end. So I'm always looking for slight margins. So for me, every 0.1 matters. And when I think of when I was trying to build my team in Game Week 1, 0.5 million, it was really hard to squeeze everybody in my team and to try and make all these sacrifices. And I ended up having to do Saka to Martinelli, things like this, which some people might not think that's that big a deal. And maybe it isn't, but I think most people kind of get a sense that over the long term, Saka's probably going to outscore Martinelli by, it could be a 10, 20 point swing, maybe more, who knows. But for me, things like that matter. Basically 0.5 million feels like a lot to me. It can make a big difference. And whenever I put teams through my model, generally, the higher the squad value, the higher the predicted points, pretty much. And whenever I try to build a team where I forget about price and I just put the best picks in, the ones that I want, I'm always over budget, and I always have to make cutbacks somewhere to squeeze people into the team. So, for me, budget is important, and even if you took Salah out of the game, you still got your bench, and if you can get to a more expensive bench than your competitors, even that could give you an advantage at times if you've got a better bench player coming on. So my instinct is that every little helps, and having good team value does matter. And of course, if everybody would do it if it wasn't a risk, it's a compromise between team value and information. And so that's the thing. So it is a risk to go early. And I wanted to think about how much of a risk, because my hunch is that it's not that much of a risk. It's quite a low risk. And my hunch is that it's a bit of a kind of like, when people, the shark attack Jaws thing, when people watch Jaws and they hear about a shark attack, they get scared to go in the water because they think they're going to get attacked by a shark. And the actual statistics, the actual odds of getting attacked by a shark are like incredibly low, and you don't need to worry about it. And I feel a little bit like that's the case with going early with price changes, that I feel like on the whole, most of the time when you go early, it's fine. And maybe some people have had some bad experiences, or they heard of other people having bad experiences, and it's given them this feeling of like, oh, I don't want to get caught out. And especially when, if you do get caught out, like the community, you get this sense that they won't have any sympathy for you. We told you not to go early. You went early. So there's that. But I think that statistically you're fine. And so basically I did this little thing. So this is last season, and this is the 100 most owned players throughout the season, pretty much. And these columns here, every other column is the minutes each game week that each player played. And then in between those are the amount of, it's the transfer balance for that player. The amount of transfers in. So if I do some of that, basically this was game week 1, everybody played, and then between game week 1 and game week 2, these were all the transfers in. So Haaland's at the top, 1.1 million people transferred him in. Next one, Zinchenko, 600,000 people transferred him in, all the way down. And basically, the majority of people, the majority of these players all started. They were fine. Like there's about 40 players here who all got transferred in. That's like 5.46 million transfers in, and the majority of them all played. So there's a few red flags. Here's red flag 1, Ben Chilwell. He played the first game, didn't play the second. 30,000 people transferred him in. Now, so perhaps that was one that if you had waited for information, maybe you would have got some late information. Now, I don't know about that. Maybe that information came after the deadline. I don't actually know. But let's just say that's one that maybe you could have, if you'd waited for information, you would have got some news about that. These two, Grealish and Foden, Man City, I kind of just disregard, because you don't need late information to know that Man City players are a rotation risk. So that you don't need late information for that. We already know that. And everybody else started. So that's 1 in 40. That's a 1 in 40 chance, and that's even if that one is the case. It's about a 1 in 40 chance. Same with the next game week. Game week 2 to 3, these were the top 40-ish players, 39 players who got transferred in, 9.28 million transfers, and every single one of them started. So that's to say that if you did that transfer at the very start of that week, you'd have had nothing to worry about. They all started. Now, some people might say there are other things to think about, like maybe one of the info that you get is not always that a player's they're going to be out. Maybe the info is that there's a new player who's been transferred in, and now your player is a rotation risk in the future, or maybe there's a tactical change and that might put you off a player. Maybe there's some other sorts of info, but I didn't want to complicate things too much. For me, the main info is injury and whether a player is going to play or not. If your player is going to play, that's the main thing. So I'm just trying to get a general sense here. And basically, that was 9.28 million happy people. If they had all done their transfers at the start of the week, they'd have all of their players would have played. So there's that. And basically, as you go through, here's the next one, between 3 and 4. All of these, you get a few that pop up. So 40,000 people brought Isaac in, but that's you didn't need late information to know that was a risk. He had just joined the club. He hadn't played the first 3. He just joined the club. It was a risk. So late information wouldn't have made a difference there. Gundogan is Man City. Again, late information doesn't make a difference. You know that he's a risk. I think that's fair to say. That's my opinion anyway. But then these two, though, Zinchenko and Zaha, so that they are two that possibly late information might have helped. 220,000 people brought Zinchenko in, and keep burping. Sorry. 220,000 people brought Zinchenko in, and then he didn't play. It looked like he was injured. Again, I don't know whether the information about him being out came before the deadline or after the deadline, because that's another thing. That these numbers might be even less. But that's basically him and Zaha. Let's just say you could, if you had waited, you might have got that info. So that's still like 2 in 40. But that we didn't have any in the game week before, so it's still about a 1 in 40 rate here. Same again here. The vast majority of people play. If you go early, they all start. Rodrigo, this one, he did actually start. He got injured in the game, so that one doesn't count. Who's that one? De Bruyne, maybe. That was the Nottingham Forest game. He was out. Maybe you would have got a leak, but I don't know. But again, Pep Roulette, maybe you should have known that one. Don't know. Maybe. The only one that really counts here is St. Maximum. He started the first 4, and then 50,000 people brought him in, and he didn't play. Would you have got information then? Possibly. Again, I don't know whether it would have come after the deadline, but basically it happens sometimes, but the vast majority of the times it doesn't. And if the rate is like 1 in 40-ish, that means that if you just took this as a policy of just always going early, chasing the price rises, maybe statistically once every season, you might get caught out. But the 37 other game weeks, you'll be fine. Now, that might sound a bit counterintuitive. Some people might be like, no, it's way more than that. And it might be. I may have done my maths wrong somewhere or something, or maybe I've missed something. But maybe it's a shark attack thing. Maybe it's just people thinking in their heads that the risk of going early is more than it actually is. Maybe. And what was I going to say? I think there's more to say about the whole going early thing. Hang on, let me have a think. There was something I was just on the tip of my head I was going to say. I can't quite remember what I was trying to say, but I was trying to just think, what would the other side say? What would the argument be for people who say it's better to wait? And I can't think. I would say that it is a judgment call, because like not every player is equal. Some players are more likely, more prone to having an injury than others, or having some sort of rotation problem than others. So, this isn't like a perfectly scientific experiment. It was just a general gist. I just wanted to get that sense of like, most of the time, the players you bring in will play. And it is this sense of like, if you're so worried that your player your pick that you want to pick might not actually still be a pick by the end of the week, you probably shouldn't be bringing them in. If they're that prone to injury and rotation, you probably shouldn't be bringing them in. Most players play game after game for long periods of time. That's the norm. Injuries are normally the rarity. And most of the time when you're bringing a player in, your expectation is that they're going to sit in your team, hopefully, for a long period. If you had to put a number on it, a guess on it, you'd think, 5-10 game weeks or something you're going to get out of this player. So this idea of like moving a couple of days early, it shouldn't be. Why would it be a problem? I think it's potentially, I don't know. I think it's over the top. I think it's fine to go early, and it is a judgment call. So I wouldn't always go early. So if you've got like a double transfer and it's like a 0.4 swing, 2 players going up, 2 players going down, you're going to be priced out. There's no midweek fixtures. It all feels very safe. Maybe, those ones are much easier to go early on. Whereas other times, if you've got a very risky player and it's only a 0.1 swing and you've got other options that you can go to, and it's like a transfer window and midweek fixtures and all this kind of business, then maybe you don't. Maybe sometimes you just you wait. But for me, basically, after looking at this little study, I'm gonna. It's actually emboldened me to go early more often now. I actually feel like I'm just gonna go for it all the way. And in fact, it's made me feel like I'm gonna. When I say this as well, this is me, like, because I'm willing to take the risk. But don't, do your own study and stuff. Because I could have missed something. I could have made an error somewhere. But for me, I'm kind of feeling like the advantage is going to be had in if I can try and make sure I know what my transfer plans are going to be for the next game week in very, very quickly. Then as soon as the next game week starts, I can move quickly. If any price changes happen immediately on the first night, on Saturday night, Sunday night, if I already know what my moves are going to be, then I can catch those price rises. And I feel like I'm going to be... This has actually made me feel like the fear is overblown. That players, the moving your transfers later is a problem. So I'm actually going to move quite early. But another argument of waiting is for your own thinking process, because your mind changes a lot. But then see, this is what I mean by, well, if I just make sure my mind is made up early and do my thinking early, then I can get those price changes and I'm locked in. I've already done my thinking. Because a lot of the thinking process occurs when you listen to content and you listen to everybody else thinking. So that's true. So I will have to be doing my thinking alone, maybe. But anyway, yeah, it's making me feel like I want to lean that way, though. I want to actually chase price rises even more. Keep having little thoughts at the tip of my head that I want to say, and I keep forgetting. What was I going to say? Another thing I was going to say was, I wonder whether some people who prefer to wait and they don't want people to go early. I don't know whether this is true, but I wonder whether some people, it's like they're trying to collectively calm the pot, because people going early means that their style of wanting to wait makes them look worse, because all these prices are going to go up so much. The more people go early, the more they're going to lose out by losing out on money. So that's why they've made their minds up. They want to wait. But all these price changes going up and down, they've got an incentive to make people stop, because they don't want to see all these prices changing. They want to wait. Or maybe they just think the game would be better without it, and they're just trying to kind of make a better game, which is fine. Again, play it your own way in that. But I do like a bit of chaos. I think, again, I like a bit of the price changes and stuff. It's a bit fun, but also I always just try to focus on what is reality rather than what I want things to be. I want just what is, and the reality is prices change, and in order to win the game, which I'm not going to win the game, but that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? I want to get the most amount of points. In order to do that, I have to I think you have to figure out what the right way to do things is, and I think this is the right way to do things. One other thing some people might have thought as well is like, well, what about when Europe hits as well? But it is basically the same, even if you come right back down here. What was one I looked at earlier? I think they're all about the same. So as we come later in the season, here's one. What's that? 35 players, and everybody started. There's one that didn't. Who's that? Ruben Dias, Man City. Doesn't count. Everybody knows their rotation risks. Let's have a look at this one. 22. So this is like there's probably a fair amount of rotation. Europe going on. Who's this one? Callum Wilson. 10,000 people brought him in. He didn't start. But I think we knew that Callum Wilson was a bit of a rotation risk already. So again, that one maybe doesn't count. Got some Man City players there. Don't count. So again, none of these would have benefited from late information in order to know if they were going to start or not. Here's one. Who's this one? Oh, no, it's Riyad Mahrez. Doesn't count. And Reece James. Again, he's just come back from an injury. Played 90 minutes there. 120,000 people brought him in. Didn't start the next one. Chelsea did have a history of rotating, so their players and bringing them back slowly. So I don't think Same with Silva there. Maybe that one, Thiago Silva. Late information might have tipped you off of that one because it looks like that was an injury there. So there's one. There's one there. Thiago Silva played every game. 20,000 people brought him in. Then suddenly he's injured. You might have got a tip off there if you had waited. But yeah, so that's all I wanted to talk about. Actually, there's a lot in this one. Look, what's this one? Game week 24. A lot of players. Who's that one? Pedro Neto. Oh no, he was already out. Doesn't count. James Maddison. Maybe might have got a tip off. Not many people brought him in. Eze, no, he was already injured and not playing much. So was he. Coutinho. So was he. Sam Greenwood doesn't count. So was he. Firmino not playing that many minutes. That one. Bernardo Silva, Man City. Kyle Walker, Man City. Nketiah. Oh yeah, that was right. So this one. And who's that one at the top? Darwin Núñez. Again, we knew he was a bit of a rotation risk. So that was always a risk. But Nketiah. So here's the one here that counts, which is like Nketiah played every game here. 130,000 people brought him in, and then he only played 20 minutes in that game. And it wasn't because Jesus was back, because I think Jesus was still out at this point. So I don't know whether it was Trossard who came in or somebody else came in, but maybe late information might have helped there. But again, I don't know. Anyway, making the same point over again. So that's all I wanted to say. Yeah, I'm all on for early transfers now. I'm feeling more secure about early transfers. I think I'm just going to go for it. I don't mind. Of course it's a risk, and I could be wrong. Maybe I've overlooked something obvious, and I'm basically going to experiment this year. And if I suddenly find out that I keep getting stung by it over and over again, then I might reconsider. But so far this season, I did Gabriel to Chilwell. I did that really early and caught his price change, and that was all fine. The second game week, I didn't do Pedro. I almost did Pedro to Alvarez, but I held off on that. But that's because I wasn't sure about Man City players. I didn't go for Pedro to Wissa or Nketiah because I wasn't sure. And later I found out information about, we had the Enciso information, we had Jesus back information, and I hadn't really settled my own thoughts. So that was the only reason why I stopped there, because I just hadn't figured my own thoughts out. So that was why I delayed there. Yeah, but if I had figured my thoughts out, I might have just gone for Wissa or somebody. Wissa and Alvarez both played. Anyway, I'm waffling. That's all I wanted to talk about. So I think I will leave it there. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.